The next seconds moved like glass shattering in slow motion. Gunfire cracked through the rain-drenched night, echoing off marble and stone. Lucas yanked Sophia down just as a bullet ripped through the window pane, spraying shards across the floor. "Stay behind me," he ordered, voice low but unshakable. Sophia's heartbeat roared in her ears. She could taste metal fear and adrenaline mixed with the smell of wet gunpowder. The air seemed to vibrate. Somewhere beyond the front steps, men shouted in Russian. "How many?" she whispered. "Too many," Lucas said grimly. He cocked his weapon with practiced ease, then glanced at her. "They must have tracked the comms frequency. The house was compromised before we even left." "But you said it was secure, it was—" He cut her off. "Someone fed them the codes. The traitor again. The phantom inside his circle." He turned toward her, brushed the wet hair from her face. "You move when I say move. Understand?" She nodded, unable to speak. Then he stood firing twice through the broken glass. 2 shadows dropped. "Go!" They ran through the hall, the echo of footsteps mixing with the storm. The once majestic mansion, the symbol of control and power, had become a war zone. Sophia followed him into the west corridor, the one lined with portraits and heavy drapes. Flames licked the edge of one curtain. The smell of burning silk filled the air. "Fire," she choked out. "Smoke grenades first," he said, pulling her behind the staircase, then accelerant. "They want to flush us out." She coughed, the air thickening. "Then what?" He looked at her, eyes sharp even in the dim light. "Then we make sure they don't live long enough to enjoy it." He led her through a narrow passage behind the library wall, a maintenance tunnel she hadn't noticed before. The walls were close, claustrophobic, lit only by the glow of emergency lights. "How do you know about this?" she asked between breaths. "I designed it," he said, "for situations just like this." Her voice trembled. "You built escape routes into your house." He almost smiled. "I build cages that look like castles. And always a way out." They emerged into a hidden garage below the east wing. The hum of generators filled the space. A sleek car waited in the shadows, black and armored. Lucas checked the corner camera feed. Static. Then movement. "They're coming around the back. Lucas." "Get in." "No," she said, suddenly gripping his arm. "Not without Evelyn." "You promised me." He froze. The words seemed to hit harder than any bullet. "I know," he said quietly. "And I intend to keep that promise. Then we go back for her. It's not that simple. Nothing with you ever is." Something flickered behind his eyes. Regret, maybe, or guilt. He lowered his weapon, took a step closer. "You think I don't care?" His voice broke its edge, turning almost tender. "Every second she's gone, it's a knife in my chest. But if we die here, you'll never see her again." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But the walls were burning, and belief didn't stop bullets. The security monitor blinked again, 6 men advancing through the courtyard. Lucas cursed under his breath. "Too late. We fight here." The next few minutes blurred into chaos. Gunfire, smoke, the smell of oil and heat. Lucas moved like a storm-controlled violence, every motion precise. He shot, reloaded, ducked behind a pillar, fired again. The rhythm of a man who'd lived this life too long. Sophia grabbed a metal rod from a workbench, her breath shallow but steady. One of the attackers burst through the side door, gun raised. She swung without thinking. The rod connected with his wrist, once, twice. The weapon clattered to the floor. He lunged for her. She screamed. Then Lucas was there, dragging the man off her and slamming him into the concrete. The sickening thud made her flinch. When it was over, she stared at the man on the ground, then at Lucas. His hands were still shaking slightly from the fight, eyes dark with something unspoken. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded, though her whole body trembled. "You did good," he said. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." A weak laugh escaped her. It sounded foreign in the middle of the gunfire. Then the alarm blared, a deep mechanical groan that meant one thing. "Basement breach," Lucas muttered. "They've cut the power grid." The lights flickered, then died completely. Darkness swallowed the room. Sophia's breath came fast. Somewhere in the dark, glass shattered. "Lucas." "I'm here." His voice was close now, steady grounding. "Follow my hand." She felt his fingers slide into hers, firm and warm, despite everything. They moved through the dark like two halves of instinct, his grip leading hers trusting. When they reached the far wall, he pushed aside a steel panel and guided her through. The tunnel beyond was narrower, colder. Water dripped from above. "Where does this go?" she asked. "Old service exit. It connects to the garden perimeter." "And then?" "We find your sister." Something in the way he said we steadied her. They reached a metal ladder leading upward. Lucas climbed first, then turned to help her up. As her hands touched his, she realized they were shaking not from fear, but from something deeper raw. When she reached the top, the hatch opened to the night air. Rain still poured, drenching them both as they crawled out behind the tree line. The mansion burned in the distance, flames climbing toward the sky. Sophia stared, her chest tight. "It's gone." Lucas followed her gaze. "A house can burn, but not everything inside it." She turned to him. "And what's left?" He looked at her like she was the only thing still standing in the ruins. "You." For a long time, neither spoke. The rain softened. The world shrank to the sound of breathing and the faint crackle of fire. Finally, Sophia whispered, "If we make it out of this, I want to know who you really are. Not the name, the man." Lucas smiled, faintly sad but real. "Then you'll have to survive long enough to find out." They reached the outer fence just before dawn. The horizon was pale, washed in gray. Smoke curled behind them. A black SUV waited on the dirt road, headlights dimmed. Gabriel stepped out, bandaged arms still stiff from the last fight. "Boss, he said we found her. The girl. She's alive." Sophia's knees nearly gave out. Lucas caught her before she fell, where she gasped. "Warehouse district. Red Hook." Lucas's eyes hardened. "Of course, Volkov's territory." Gabriel nodded. "They're holding her as bait." "For you." Sophia grabbed Lucas's sleeve. "Then we go. Now." He hesitated just a moment. Rain dripped from his hair, tracing the scar along his temple. "It's a trap," he said. "I don't care." Neither did he. He opened the car door for her voice, steady but low. "Then we walk into it. Together." As the SUV sped toward Brooklyn, Sophia leaned against the cold window, watching the city blur past. The lights looked softer in the rain, like stars reflected in puddles. Beside her, Lucas stared straight ahead, hands clenched on the wheel. His control never wavered, but she could feel the storm inside him, the fear, the guilt, the need. And as thunder rolled again across the skyline, Sophia finally understood this man wasn't just fighting the Russians. He was fighting himself. And for reasons she couldn't explain, she'd already chosen to fight with him. The rain had stopped by the time they reached Red Hook. Dawn crept slowly across the waterfront, turning the industrial skyline into a jagged silhouette of cranes and rusted steel. The air smelled like salt diesel, and something older, something that clung to the bones of the city. Sophia sat rigid in the back seat, her hands locked together in her lap. She hadn't spoken for miles. The silence between her and Lucas was thick enough to feel. Gabriel drove. His jaw was tight, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. "Warehouse is 3 blocks ahead," he said quietly. "No movement yet." Lucas leaned forward, scanning the fogged glass. "No movement means they're waiting." Sophia's voice broke the silence, softer than she meant it to be. "You think Evelyn's still alive?" Lucas looked at her, then really looked, and for once there was no mask of command. Just a man who'd already asked himself that question 1,000 times. "She's alive," he said. "If she weren't, they wouldn't need us to come." Sophia nodded, though her stomach twisted with doubt. She turned toward the window, watching as the world blurred into gray. When they stopped, the engine stayed running. The warehouse loomed ahead, 3 stories of concrete and broken windows. Its sign faded to a ghost of red letters. "Portside Shipping Co." Lucas reached for his gun. "Gabriel, you take the east flank. No one fires until I give the word." "And her?" Gabriel asked, glancing at Sophia. "She stays with me." Sophia bristled. "You mean behind you?" He didn't argue. "Exactly." She almost smiled. "At least you're honest. Always." He pushed open the door. rainwater dripping from the roof above them. "Stay close, Sophia. No matter what happens, don't run." The warehouse swallowed sound. Inside it smelled of metal oil and damp concrete. Light filtered through cracks in the roof, cutting narrow beams across the dark. Sophia's pulse thundered in her ears. She followed Lucas through the maze of crates and shadows, her shoes splashing softly in the puddles on the floor. A faint sound reached them, muffled crying. Evelyn Sophia breathed. Lucas raised a hand. "Wait." She froze. Every instinct screamed to move forward, but the look in his eyes, sharp, focused, dangerous, kept her still. He pointed toward a stack of wooden pallets. A small red light blinked between them. "Laser trigger," he murmured. "Tripwire bomb. They're expecting a rescue." Sophia's breath caught. "Then how do we—" He cut her off with a whisper. "Trust me." She watched as he crouched, moving with lethal grace, his fingers finding the wire, tracing it through the shadows. It wasn't just precision. It was control, born from a life where mistakes meant graves. When he disarmed the device, the light flicked off with a soft click. "Clear," he said, standing. Sophia exhaled shakily. "Remind me never to doubt you again." He gave her a fleeting smile. "You just did." They followed the sound deeper into the building. The cries grew louder, desperate now. Sophia turned the corner and stopped. Evelyn was there. Tied to a chair under a single hanging light, her face streaked with dirt and fear. Sophia ran before Lucas could stop her. "Evelyn." Her sister looked up, disbelief flashing across her tear-filled eyes. "Sophie, no, wait, too late." The lights overhead snapped on, blinding and white. Doors slammed shut. Figures emerged from the shadows, men in black, armed and silent, forming a half circle. Lucas grabbed Sophia, pulling her back against him, as one of the men stepped forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with slicked-back silver hair and eyes like ice. "Mr. Wilson," he said with a faint accent. "You took your time." Lucas's voice was calm, almost casual. "Volkov." Volkov smiled. "You brought her. How thoughtful." His gaze slid to Sophia. "The woman who saved you. I was beginning to think she was a myth." Sophia's skin crawled. "Where's my sister?" Volkov raised a hand. One of his men untied Evelyn, dragging her forward. "She's unharmed," he said. "For now." Lucas's gun was already raised. "You want me. Let them go." Volkov chuckled, lighting a cigarette. "Ah, the noble killer, always protecting something that can't be protected." He exhaled smoke, lazy and cruel. "You know it's ironic. She saves your life, and now you'll watch hers end for it." Sophia stepped forward before she could stop herself. "If you hurt her," Lucas caught her wrist, whispering, "Don't." Volkov tilted his head. "You should listen to your savior. He knows what happens when you play hero." Lucas's eyes never left Volkov's. "You've already lost, old man." "Oh," Volkov smirked. "How do you figure?" That Lucas's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because you're standing where I wanted you." The explosion came from the roof, sharp, precise, deafening. Smoke poured from the rafters as gunfire erupted. Lucas shoved Sophia to the ground, covering her with his body, as bullets tore through the air. Evelyn screamed. Volkov shouted orders in Russian. The warehouse dissolved into chaos. Gabriel's team burst through the side entrance, returning fire. The sound was endless metal, shouting death. Lucas fired back, each shot calculated, efficient. But there were too many of them. "Get Evelyn out," he shouted. Sophia grabbed her sister's hand, pulling her toward the exit. Evelyn stumbled, crying. "Sophie, no, behind you!" Sophia turned just in time to see Volkov aiming. Lucas lunged between them. The gun went off. The sound was like thunder inside her skull. Lucas staggered the impact, forcing him back a step. His hand went to his side, blood blooming across his shirt. "Lucas!" He didn't fall, not yet. He raised his weapon one last time, fired once, and Volkov went down, a crimson halo spreading beneath him. Then Lucas dropped to his knees. Sophia caught him before he hit the ground. "Hey," he whispered, his voice rough but steady. "Told you. I'd keep my promise." She pressed her hand to the wound, panic rising like a tide. "Stay with me. Do you hear me? Stay with me." His hand came up, brushing her cheek. His touch was warm, too warm. "You should have stayed away from me." "Too late," she said through tears. "You already ruined that." His lips curved, half a smile, half a ghost of one. "Guess I did." Gabriel appeared beside them, shouting orders, pulling Evelyn toward the exit. "We've got to move, Sophia." Looked up, the world blurring around her. "He's bleeding too much." "Then we carry him." Outside, the dawn was fully breaking now, painting the smoke in shades of pink and gold. Sirens wailed in the distance, police maybe, or another threat. It didn't matter. They loaded Lucas into the SUV, his head resting in Sophia's lap. His eyes fluttered open, just long enough to find hers. "Don't let me die in this car," he murmured. "You're not dying." He gave a faint laugh that broke something inside her. "You're terrible at lying." She leaned down, forehead against his. "Then believe this, I'm not leaving you. Not again." The SUV sped toward the horizon, smoke trailing behind like a shadow that refused to fade. In the rearview mirror, the warehouse burned, collapsing in on itself. The war might have ended for a moment, but Sophia knew better had a way of surviving. And so did love. Rain fell again before they reached the safe house. Not a storm, just the soft, constant drizzle that turned Brooklyn's streets into mirrors of gray light. Sophia's hands were still pressed to Lucas's side, her palms slick with his blood. The SUV hit every pothole like a curse, and each time his breath hitched shallow and fragile. Almost there, she whispered, even though she didn't know where there was anymore. Gabriel drove like a man racing against God's clock. Evelyn sat beside him, pale and silent, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Sophia barely noticed. Her whole world had narrowed to the rise and fall of Lucas's chest. The safe house wasn't much to look at, an abandoned brownstone on a quiet street, windows boarded from the inside. Gabriel kicked the door open, barking orders in Italian. Two medics appeared from the shadows, both part of Lucas's network, their faces grim and professional. "Get him on the table," one said. Sophia followed, numb as they worked. The smell of antiseptic and blood filled the room. "Pulse dropping," someone called. "Pressure's unstable," another answered. Lucas, Sophia said softly, brushing the wet hair from his forehead. "Stay with me, please." "You promised." His eyes fluttered open, gray and glassy, but there was a faint smile there. "You never listen, do you? I learned from the best." His hand twitched toward hers, but the medic pushed her gently aside. "We need space, ma'am." She backed away, trembling. Her clothes were soaked, her skin cold, her heart louder than her breath. Gabriel stood by the door, voice low but firm. "He'll make it." "He has before." Sophia turned on him. "Don't lie to me. I'm not," Gabriel said. "He's survived worse." "Then why do you look like you don't believe that?" Gabriel didn't answer. His silence was enough. Hours passed like years. The clock on the wall ticked louder with every second. Evelyn slept on a couch in the corner, exhaustion finally winning. The medics worked in rhythmic silence, hands, steady faces, unreadable. When they finally stepped back, one of them nodded toward Sophia. "He's stable, for now." She crossed the room before anyone could stop her. Lucas lay still, bandaged, pale, the roughness of his breath, steady but fragile. Machines beeped quietly beside him, a sound she'd never heard in his world, a sound that belonged to hospitals and ordinary people, not men who built empires from smoke. She sat beside him, her voice barely a whisper. "You're supposed to be untouchable." His lips curved faintly. "Guess I'm losing my reputation." "You're lucky I don't kill you myself for scaring me like that. Wouldn't be the first time someone tried." "Stop joking." His eyes opened, then clearer now but softer. "If I stop, I'll remember how close I came." Sophia looked down at their joined hands. "You can't keep living like this, Lucas. Every fight, every bullet, it's going to end one way." He watched her in silence for a long moment. "You're right, so you'll stop now." He smiled faintly. "But I'll try to give it meaning." "Meaning?" "For once, I'm not fighting to protect my name. I'm fighting for something real." His thumb brushed her knuckles gentle, despite the IV lines taped to his wrist. "You." Sophia felt the air leave her chest. "You can't say things like that when you're half-conscious." "I mean it more because I am." Her throat ached. Lucas, don't tell me I'm wrong. Not tonight. So she didn't. Later, when the medics left and Gabriel set guards outside the brownstone, fell into an uneasy quiet. Sophia sat by the window, watching the rain blur the city lights. Evelyn stirred, her voice hoarse. He's going to be okay, Sophia nodded. They said so. Her sister's eyes glistened. I thought I'd never see you again. Sophia crossed the room, knelt in front of her. You won't ever be in danger like that again. I swear it. You can't control that. Evelyn whispered. Not with him. Sophia froze. What do you mean? Evelyn hesitated, then spoke, voice trembling. They didn't take me because of you. They took me because of him. I heard them say it. The girl's insurance in case Wilson doesn't fall in line. He's been fighting someone inside his own circle. Sophia felt her stomach twist. You're saying there's someone betraying him? Evelyn nodded. They called him the Ghost. Said he'd been feeding information to Volkov for months. The traitor, Sophia whispered. Lucas knew. He just didn't know who. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Sophie, what if it's someone close to him? Sophia looked toward the room where Lucas slept. Her mind raced. Gabriel, Sophia Montesani, Elena. Faces flashed like cards in a deck of suspicion. She didn't answer. When she finally returned to Lucas's bedside, he was awake again, staring at the ceiling. The dim light caught the edge of his profile, the line of his jaw, the faint scar near his temple. Couldn't sleep? She asked softly. He smiled without looking at her. You forget I don't sleep well even when I'm not shot. Why? Because the dead don't rest quietly in my head. Sophia sat beside him. You don't get to make this about guilt right now. He turned his head slightly. What should I make it about then? About surviving. I have. Barely. Barely's better than never. He laughed weakly. You really think this ends with me walking away from all of it? You don't walk away from a life like mine, Sophia. You either die in it or you burn it down. Then burn it, she said, surprising even herself. He looked at her, eyes wide. You heard me, she continued. You want to stop running? Then end it. Find whoever's still feeding them information. Destroy it from the inside. Then you and I, maybe we find something else to build. For a moment, he just stared at her as if he'd never seen her before. Then he reached for her hand, his fingers brushing her wrist. You really believe I could do that? I believe you already want to. Something in his gaze shifted. The mask cracked just slightly. He squeezed her hand. Then I'll try. Sophia smiled faintly. That's a start. By morning, the rain had stopped, leaving a pale, heavy fog over the city. The brownstone was quiet again, the world outside deceptively calm. Gabriel came in with a folder. Intel from Elena. We found a signal trace, encrypted messages sent from inside the estate before the breach. It was an inside job. Lucas's jaw clenched. Who? Not sure yet. But the timing matches Sophia Montesani's last movement log. Sophia's heart dropped. His advisor, Gabriel, nodded grimly. She was supposed to be loyal. Lucas said nothing, only stared at the wall, as if seeing something far beyond it. Sophia touched his shoulder gently. What will you do? He looked at her, eyes colder now. Finish what they started. She recognized that tone, the one that lived somewhere between mercy and vengeance. And though part of her wanted to beg him not to go, she didn't. Because in that silence, she finally understood something about Lucas Wilson. He didn't fight for survival anymore. He fought for redemption. And redemption in his world always came with blood. The city looked almost peaceful that morning. Mist rolled off the East River, softening the sharp lines of the skyline. But beneath that calm, something was shifting, a quiet, deliberate current that carried danger in its wake. Lucas sat by the window of the safe house shirt, unbuttoned halfway, a bandage wrapped tight across his ribs. The early sunlight bled across his face, pale and cold. He hadn't said a word in an hour, just sat there motionless, staring at nothing. Sophia watched from the doorway. The silence between them was heavy now, not the silence of fear, but of choices waiting to be made. You're not healed enough to move, she said gently. He didn't look at her. I've been worse. That's not the point. He turned, then gray eyes sharp and distant. The point is that every hour I sit here, someone else dies. The people who trusted me. The ones who believed I could protect them. You're not a god, Lucas. No, he said softly. But I'm the devil they made. Sophia stepped closer, refusing to look away. Then stop pretending you have to be. He gave a small, humorless laugh. It's too late for that. She reached for him, fingers brushing the edge of the bandage. You keep saying that like it's a fact. But what if it isn't? What if you can still walk away? His gaze locked on hers, unreadable, and go where Sophia. Build a house somewhere quiet. Pretend I never drowned half the city in blood to stay alive. Her voice softened. Maybe it's not about pretending. Maybe it's about choosing what comes next. Something flickered in his expression, an emotion she couldn't quite name. Regret, longing, fear. He looked away first. What comes next is finding Montesani. Sophia Montesani, the woman who'd once been Lucas's most trusted advisor. The strategist who built his network, managed his negotiations, shielded him from the eyes of enemies. And now the ghost in his walls. Gabriel entered the room, then a folder in hand. We've traced her last signal to an offshore account tied to the Volkov family. She's moving again, probably trying to disappear before you find her. Lucas's tone was quiet but deadly. Then we don't give her the chance. Gabriel hesitated. There's one more thing. She didn't act alone. Lucas's head lifted. Explain. Encrypted transfers, same pattern as before. Someone on our side is still feeding her information. Sophia felt the chill slide down her spine. You mean there's another traitor? Gabriel nodded. And this one's close. Lucas didn't flinch. Then we root them out, all of them. That night, the plan took shape. Gabriel would trace Montesani's signal through the dark web. Lucas would draw her out by leaking false intel about a meeting at an abandoned pier in the Bronx. And Sophia, though he didn't say it would be the reason Montesani showed up. She'll come for you, Lucas said, his voice low. Your leverage. The one thing she'll think I can't protect. Sophia folded her arms. So you're using me as bait. I'm keeping you close. That's not an answer. He met her gaze. It's the only one you're getting. She sighed, half angry, half afraid. You really don't know how to ask for help. Do you? Lucas smiled faintly. If I did, I'd have lost this game a long time ago. The pier was empty when they arrived, just fog-salt air, and the slow lap of water against rusted metal. Sophia stood beside Lucas, the cold biting through her coat. She could feel the tension humming in the air between them like a live wire. Gabriel's voice crackled through the earpiece. No movement yet, but I've got pings on the perimeter. Someone's coming. Lucas nodded once, eyes scanning the horizon. Stay sharp. Sophia's breath came shallow. You think she'll really come alone? She's too smart not to bring backup, he said. But she'll want to see you herself. People like Montesani, when they betray someone they like, to watch it hurt. Sophia swallowed. And what about you? Lucas's jaw tightened. I just want to end it. The sound came first, a soft crunch of footsteps on gravel. From the fog, a figure appeared. Tall, graceful. Wrapped in a long coat, her blonde hair tied back with surgical precision. Sophia Montesani. Lucas, she called, her voice smooth as glass. You look terrible. Lucas's gun was already raised. You shouldn't have come. Oh, I think I should have. She stepped closer, heels clicking softly on the wet concrete. You took everything from me. You think I'd just vanish? You betrayed me. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. I warned you once, there's no loyalty in Empire. Only survival. Sophia stepped forward. You put my sister in danger for survival? Montesani's eyes flicked to her, assessing cold. Collateral damage. Nothing personal. Lucas's hand tightened on the trigger. You talk like a woman who doesn't realize her story's over. Is it? She said softly. Because the real story isn't about me. Something in her tone made Sophia's stomach drop. Montesani smiled, slow, venomous. You think I was the ghost, Lucas? You still don't see it, do you? The one who betrayed you wasn't me. Lucas's eyes narrowed. Then who? She nodded toward the shadows behind him. Gabriel stepped out of the fog. Gun drawn. Sophia froze. No. Lucas turned slowly, disbelief flickering for just an instant. You? Gabriel's face was unreadable, his voice steady. You changed, boss. You started thinking with your heart. That's the first step to dying in this world. Lucas's gun stayed steady, but his voice softened with something like sorrow. I trusted you. You shouldn't have, Gabriel said. No one should trust you. Montesani smirked. You see, I told you, Lucas. Empires don't fall from the outside, they rot from within. Sophia felt the moment fracture the line between loyalty and betrayal, snapping like a cable under tension. Gabriel's finger twitched. Lucas moved first. 2 shots rang out, one from each gun. The world slowed. Gabriel stumbled backward, clutching his chest. Shock etched across his face. His gun fell skittering across the wet concrete. Lucas exhaled sharply, his hand trembling from the recoil. I told you, he said, quietly. You never walk away from me. Gabriel's body hit the ground. Silence followed. Montesani stared at him, fury flashing in her eyes. You can't kill all your ghosts, Lucas. He met her gaze coldly. Then I'll learn to live with them. Before she could raise her weapon, a single shot split the fog. She fell eyes wide, blood staining her white collar. Sophia lowered her shaking hand, the gun still warm in her grasp. Lucas turned, stunned. Sophia. She dropped the weapon, tears streaking down her face. You weren't going to do it. She was unarmed. She would have killed you. The echo of the gunshot faded, leaving only the sound of the water lapping against the dock. Lucas stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek. You shouldn't have to carry this. Sophia looked at him, her voice trembling. Neither should you. For a long moment they just stood there, 2 people bound by violence, staring into each other's eyes, like they were searching for the last piece of something human in the wreckage. Finally, Lucas said, It's over. But they both knew it wasn't. Because in the distance, through the thick fog and the first hints of dawn, another shadow moved, watching, waiting unseen. And Sophia, without knowing why, felt the chill crawl down her spine again. The war was far from over. It had just changed shape. The weeks after Red Hook passed in fragments, sirens, headlines, whispers. The police called it a gang war. The papers called it a blood feud. But for Sophia, it was simply the end of a story she hadn't meant to live inside. The pier burned down that night, taking with it everything Lucas Wilson had built in shadow. His empire, his enemies, his ghosts, they all turned to ash. And yet somehow he survived. The first time Sophia saw him awake again, he was sitting on the porch of a cabin overlooking Lake Placid. The morning light filtered through the pine trees, soft and golden, painting his face in a piece she had never seen there before. She paused at the doorway, her heart a mix of disbelief and relief. You're supposed to be resting, she said. He didn't turn. I am, just not very good at it. Sophia smiled faintly, stepping closer. You never were. He looked at her then. His eyes, once storm gray, seemed softer now, still sharp, still calculating, but human again. You shouldn't have come. I wasn't going to stay away, she said simply. You almost died. Twice. 3rd time's the charm, he murmured, and the ghost of a smile touched his lips. Sophia sat beside him, the wooden boards creaking under their weight. You could start over here. No more guns, no more lies. He studied the lake, its stillness reflecting the mountains beyond. You think I can just erase everything? No, she said quietly, but you can choose what you carry. He turned to her, then really looking as though seeing her for the first time in this new light. You sound like someone who still believes I can change. Sophia's smile was sad but sure. I don't think you ever stopped trying to. He exhaled, leaning back, his voice low. When I saw you that night in Manhattan, I didn't know why I couldn't look away. I think now I do, why. Because you were the only person in that room who wasn't afraid of me. You looked at me like I was a man, not a monster. Sophia's gaze softened. You weren't one, just lost. Lucas's lips curved slightly. You say that like you found me. Maybe I did. A silence settled between them, comfortable this time, not heavy. Outside, the wind moved through the trees, and for the first time in months, the world didn't sound like danger. As days passed, life took on an unfamiliar rhythm. Mornings brought coffee and the quiet crackle of a fireplace. Afternoons were long walks through the forest. Evenings were soft and golden, the lake catching the last light like glass. Sophia began to laugh again. Lucas began to sleep. But sometimes when she woke before dawn, she would find him standing at the window, staring at the horizon, like a man still listening for ghosts in the silence. One morning she joined him. "They're gone," she whispered. "All of them." He didn't look at her. Ghosts don't disappear. They just learn to whisper quieter. She slipped her hand into his. "Then let them. We're still here." He looked down at their joined hands, the corners of his mouth softening. "You know, I used to think survival was victory. And now I think it's forgiveness. For yourself, for all of it." Sophia nodded. "That's a start." Spring came early that year. The snow melted into rivers that ran bright and fast, feeding the lake. The cabin filled with light. Lucas started rebuilding not his empire, but something simpler. He fixed the porch railing, planted a small garden, even learned how to make pancakes terribly at first, but he insisted on trying again. Sophia teased him endlessly. The great Lucas Wilson brought down by batter. Careful, he warned, holding a dripping spatula like a weapon. "I still know people." "Oh, I'm terrified," she said, laughing, and in that laugh was something like healing. He leaned against the counter, watching her with that rare, quiet smile. "I like this," he said. "Us?" The silence. Sophia met his eyes. "Then hold on to it." "I am," he said softly. "More than you know." A month later, she found him outside at sunset, working on the old car he'd bought from a local mechanic. Grease smudged his forearms, and for once his world didn't look dangerous. It looked ordinary. He glanced up as she approached. "You're staring. I'm still getting used to this version of you. Which one?" "The one that doesn't come home bleeding." He chuckled. "I'm evolving." Sophia leaned against the hood. "You miss it sometimes, don't you?" "The power? The control?" He wiped his hands on a rag, thoughtful. "Sometimes. But then I look at you and realize control's overrated." She raised an eyebrow. "Flattery won't get you out of fixing dinner." "Dinner?" he asked. "I thought you said you were cooking." "I lied." He laughed, really laughed, the sound deep and unguarded. And for the first time she realized how beautiful it was. That night after the dishes were done and the house had gone quiet, Sophia stepped outside. The stars stretched endlessly overhead, their reflections trembling in the lake. Lucas followed a few minutes later, his footsteps soft on the porch. "You okay?" he asked. She turned to him. "Just thinking." "About what?" "How strange it is that everything we ran from brought us here." He nodded slowly. "Maybe that's what running is for, to find what's worth stopping for." Sophia smiled faintly. "You think this is it? The end of the story?" He took her hand, threading his fingers through hers. "No, just a better chapter." She looked up at him, her heart swelling with something she hadn't felt in years. "Peace. You really think we get to have that?" she whispered. He brushed his thumb over her cheek. "We've already earned it." In the distance, the first light of dawn touched the horizon. The lake shimmered 1,000 shades of gold and silver. Sophia leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know what I think?" "What I think you were never the devil they made you out to be." He smiled, quiet and tired and full. "Then who was I?" She looked at Hassim. Eyes glistening in the early light. A man who finally found his way home. Lucas's breath hitched a faint laugh caught between disbelief and wonder. "And you, someone who finally stopped running." He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. The world around them, the lake, the forest, the fading ghosts of the city they'd left behind, seemed to exhale too. They stood like that for a long time, watching the sunrise paint everything new. No words, no promises. Just two people who had crawled out of the dark and found light again together. And for Lucas Wilson, the man who once built his empire out of fear, that was the one victory he'd never expected to win. The lake shimmered. The sky turned gold. And somewhere far away, the world kept moving, unaware that in one quiet corner of it, redemption had finally found its home. If this story touched something deep inside you, stay with us. Because love like this, raw, dangerous, and painfully human, doesn't end here. It lingers. In every heartbeat, every choice, every second chance. Subscribe, listen and feel every word, because sometimes the most broken hearts tell the most beautiful stories.